Welcome to the stage, Dan Siroker.
Thank you. Today I'm going to talk about the future of personalized AI. But before I do, I want to tell you why I'm here. And I'll tell you, the reason I'm going to tell you why I'm here is because we're going to take a trip to Crazy Town. Some of the things I'm going to talk about today, the first time you hear them will seem absolutely crazy. And the reason I start with this is my kids, is because I'm here because I want to talk about the future I want to create for them. And I think they're going to live in a world that's changing faster than ever. And I think a lot about what it would take for us to build technology that enables them to do things we never thought were possible. So I'll start with that. We are going to take a trip to Crazy Town. So let's get started. So the future of personalized AI. What is personalized AI? I was actually working on this presentation last week, and one of our investors actually put out a little video that captured the answer to this question perfectly. So I'm going to play a short little clip that answers the question, what is personalized AI?
If I wanted to ask ChatGPT something right now about something we had talked about earlier, think about what would happen. I would reach down, I would get out my laptop, I'd open it up, I'd launch a web browser, I'd start typing, and I'd have to explain that thing, and I would hit enter, and I would wait, and I would get a response. And that is at the limit of what the current tool of a laptop can do. But I think this technology deserves something much better.
We agree. This is my co-founder and I took a trip down to that same coffee shop that Sam and Johnny Ive were at, and we asked ourselves, what is the technology that the world deserves today to capture the power of large language models and AI? And it was really driven by an insight we've had for a while. That insight is that AI is getting smarter, we all know that, but still knows very little about you. If you were to map the personalized AI landscape, where on one dimension you look at intelligence, that's the X dimension from dumb to smart models, and another dimension, the y-axis here, is personalization. How much context does the model have about you? You can look at the history over the last few years. We started with ChatGPT. This was a model that's now called GPT 3.5. It was pretty good. Got a lot better with GPT-4, and even better more recently with GPT 4.5. Eventually, we're going to hit AGI. Some of us think it'll happen sooner rather than later. And before you know it, we're going to not be talking about AGI. That will have happened, and we're long past it. We'll be talking about ASI, artificial superintelligence, machines far, far smarter than the average human. On top of these models, there are apps. So ChatGPT actually does some really interesting things. It will keep track of all of your saved memories, facts about you, the names of your kids, and your chat history, which is really helpful. It's built on top of that data. And Sam was alluding to, he's talking to Johnny Ive, he's saying, wouldn't it be great if we could just capture everything you've said and heard? And, fortunately, there is a product that does exactly that. The Limitless pendant. I'm wearing one right here, thank you. I know Linus earlier is wearing one, so I see very few folks out here wearing them. Thank you for evangelizing and wearing our product. You are part of a small tribe of people who I think are slowly but surely changing the world. And you'll see, I think this time next year, my prediction is there'll probably be half this room wearing this or something similar from one of our competitors. And so what is the Limitless pendant? It remembers what you say in here throughout the day. You can stay engaged in conversations like this without being distracted. I see several folks distracted taking notes. You don't have to be distracted. You can just be present in the moment. You get insights about your life, and you can ask your personalized AI anything. Of course, it's got all-day battery life, crystal clear audio, it's light and wearable, and it's weatherproof. You can even jump in the pool. Let me give you some examples. So if you look at this map of the personalized AI landscape and ask yourself, okay, let's ask these models to draft an email to Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI. GPT 3.5 would say, I hope this email finds you well. I don't know why AI models want people to be found well by emails. This is very common. I hope this email finds you well. My name is, insert your name. It doesn't know who I am. I'm reaching out to discuss a partnership. Doesn't even know who Sam is, the CEO of OpenAI. GPT-4 got a little bit smarter. It says, I hope this email finds you well. It still does this a lot. My name is, doesn't know who I am, and does know who Sam is. Hey, you're the CEO of OpenAI. Great. GPT 4.5 with ChatGPT on top of it, using the saved memories and chat history, does quite a bit better. Here it knows who I am, it knows who Sam is, some sort of superficial stuff you can get from our website. Pretty good. But here's what Limitless can do. If I say draft an email to Sam Altman, has got context of all the conversations I've had for the last few months, every presentation I've made, all the content I've created. So it knows, hey, thanks for investing us in 5 years. So it knows our relationship. It knows who he is to me. So a great way to start a draft. It knows that over the past few months, we've been going ups and downs. We've shipped the pendant now to over 10,000 people globally. Can you believe that? 10,000 people globally are wearing this little device. And it talks about the ups and downs, the emotional journey, the trough of sorrow. So much, much better draft than something you could superficially get with just ChatGPT. Here's another example. What groceries should I buy? Oftentimes I'm at Trader Joe's thinking, what should I buy? And if you use, almost by accident, if you just use the conversations you've had over the last few weeks, you get this great list of things to buy. The fact that my son Jack ate a ton of green beans, so maybe we might be out of that. Isn't that amazing that AI, just by virtue of hearing me say that, now knows that this might be something I want to buy at a grocery store? Has anyone been to a grocery store and forgotten what we should buy? Anyone? Yeah, it's very common. Or for me, this is a really powerful example. What can I do to be a better dad to Jack? Jack's my middle son. Anyone here middle kids? Middle sons, middle kids? Okay. Usually the youngest or the oldest might get the most attention, but my son Jack here, it gives me concrete things I can do. Give him praise for being a master builder at Lego. Instead of giving him a sugary treat for participation at soccer, maybe reward him with some more special time. Naming and the frustration, these things are amazing insights that me as a dad can get better at. Using the context of our past, the things I've said, the things he said, it's helping me be better. And I think that's the true potential for AI, is to help us be better. All right, so that's what I mean by personalized AI. Now, one question we ask ourselves is, how big is that line? Like, how much more questions can you answer just having the context of the conversations, the things you've said and heard? And we did an anonymous analysis of all the questions people have been using our product to ask, and we found a really interesting insight that we can answer 45 times as many prompts because of the context that we're offering. That's 45 times. That's the difference, the percentage of the questions that get asked that you need the context of what you said and heard, divided by the percentage of questions that just ChatGPT history or things like that can answer. So there's a whole space of questions that AI can now answer for you that weren't possible before without the context of every conversation that you've said, every conversation you've been, everything you've said, everything you've heard. The other thing that we're really proud of is the fact that 99.6% of people keep the pendant. They buy the pendant, they keep it. That's a 0.4% return rate. Just to give you a little context, that's better than the iPhone. The iPhone has a 0.4% return rate. So, sorry, Johnny. We're very proud of building a product here that people love. They keep it, they use it every day. Now, the data is great, but the anecdotes are even better. Here's some really great quotes. Some of the folks in this room sharing their stories, how much they love the pendant. They actually use it every day and really get a ton of value out of it. So we're really glad. Thank you for all of you who wear it. I know it's different. It's weird. Most people in the world, they might ask a question of what that is, but slowly but surely, I think that is changing. So what comes next? So I want to spend some time talking about this whole talk about the future of personalized AI. This is where we are today, and by the way, the future is already here. We're just not evenly distributed, so that's why I shared some of the things that are already out there today, but you may not have seen. Let me talk about some really crazy things that are coming next. And I'll get increasingly more crazy. So first, what's coming next? We started this company in many ways because of the simple fact. 90% of memories are forgotten after a week. It follows what's called the forgetting curve. So as you live your lives, this conversation, I guarantee you in a week from now, if I'm lucky, you'll remember maybe 10%, if I'm lucky. And that's if you're paying attention and you're really engaged. More likely than not, you'll forget most of this conversation, unless the few of you who are wearing a pendant can go back to it. And it gets worse as you get older. You might not know this, but your memory peaks when you're 20 years old. And every year thereafter, your memory gets worse. Often, to solve this problem, we do something called to-do lists. Anyone here use a to-do list? Yeah, a few folks. I'm kind of embarrassed to admit, because it's a very high-functioning, high-productivity group, I do not use to-do lists. I do something I'm a little embarrassed to admit, which is this. I mark things unread. Anyone else do this? Yeah. And what I love about marking something unread, and by the way, if you don't do this, it's a pretty simple hack. Basically, you get something either in Slack or email, and instead of doing that thing or taking some action, you just sort of mark it unread. Make the future version of yourself have to deal with it later. Now, what I love about it, it's 2 taps or 2 clicks. 2 taps in Slack, you hit the message, mark it in red, I don't have to worry about it. On email and on the web, it's the same. But what's better than 2 taps? 1 tap. What's better than 1 tap? 0 taps. What if reminders were automatic? You don't have to do anything. And so I want to introduce you to the next major new feature of our product. Right today, we have this life log, which is everything you've seen, everything you've said and heard, categorized, summarized. And we're going to add a new major feature called reminders. And this is not yet another to-do list. This is reminders done for you automatically, using the context of what you're saying and hearing throughout the day. So let me show you what that looks like. So reminders now show up to you chronologically, so you'll see everything that happened today. It uses the conversation that you're having already, and just by virtue of that conversation, you get these sort of suggested reminders. I was talking about building a treehouse, and I needed to get a 1/4 inch drill bit. That's those details matter when you're trying to buy that later. You might have to remember to pay taxes. You can go through different categories here. We automatically categorize this by you can list them all. You can look at work things, personal things, groceries. And the beautiful thing here is, if you see something, oh yeah, I should get some, maybe at night you're looking, I gotta get oatmeal, just accept that. You hit the button, it goes from gray to solid. You get it done, you get beautiful confetti, a nice positive reinforcement. You can set and forget it. You can create a list. This is a custom list of things like books you might want to read. And you give the LLM, this is my favorite part, you give the LLM a description, and the LLM then will, throughout the day, listen for things like that. You say, books I want to read, or maybe movies. Maybe you're really into sci-fi movies. And here at the conference, somebody mentions a great sci-fi movie that they saw recently. The pendant listens to that, hears that, and adds that to your list as a suggested reminder. So that's what reminders that are automatic look like. You set it and forget it. You look at it at the end of the day. If there's anything you might have slipped through the cracks, you have it. You don't have to be there taking notes, taking action items. You can customize it. You can create your own lists. We categorize it for you. What do you think? Now, the next question we ask ourselves is not just if reminders were automatic, but there's so much more to your life than what you say and hear. What if you could actually go beyond just what you say and hear and capture far more of your life? Maybe everything you've read and written. So this is another major new feature we're going to be launching, or capability. This is something that, as was my introduction mentioned, we worked on this app called Rewind for a long time, still out there. It's a great product, captures your screen. We're going to take the best of Rewind and bring it to Limitless. The things that you see on your screen, the words you see, the words you write, and we're going to capture all of that. So in a given day, by the way, that's a lot. Today, most people say and hear about 50,000 words. They read, they write 43,000 words. Compare that to just the chat history, for example, that's about 700 words. So tons of context we can offer your personalized AI. Okay, with all that, what's the point? What are the use cases? What can you do with all that context? Well, I'll just map a couple of use cases onto this two-dimensional chart here that just give you some ideas. Obviously, LLMs, I think, have surpassed high school writing. Today, in some cases, they can do some PhD writing. Not crazy to imagine that very soon, large language models can do new science. Some really amazing things that are happening even already right now. Now go to the other dimension. This is sort of the unpersonalized but more intelligent models. If you go to the other dimension, like I showed you, LLMs are pretty good now with the context of your past drafting emails for you. Not too far from now, it'll be able to do the boring half of your job for you. We all have a half of our job that's the mundane, the repetitive, but it uses the context of your experience, what you know, to be able to actually do that job well. Now AI, with the context of things you've read and written, the things you've said and heard, can do that for you. And down the line, agentic behavior. We talked a lot about agents today, a lot of the speakers did. Being able to actually take that context and then go off and do things autonomously is also a huge, huge opportunity for personalized AI. But, like I said at the beginning of the talk, we're going to take a trip to Crazy Town. So this is where things get a little crazy. I'm going to talk about something so audacious, so crazy, that I have to squish everything down to the side to really give you a contrast of where we're going. And this is the future, the true future of personalized AI. Before I do that, though, I need to set the stage by just making a simple claim that the impossible seems impossible until it doesn't. Let me give you 3 examples. In October 9th, 1903, the New York Times wrote, "The flying machine might fly in 1 million to 10 million years." 1 million to 10 million years in October 9th, 1903. And just 69 days later, the first flight. Million years, 69 days, quite a big difference. Next example. This is Lee DeForest. He said, man will never reach the moon regardless of all scientific advances. In general, you should tend not to or underestimate all future scientific advances. This is the father of the radio, and 12 years later, we have Buzz Aldrin on the moon, taken a photo by Neil Armstrong. Third example, more recent one. This is a great scientist, Professor Dame Janet Thornton. She said, protein folding is a problem that I'm beginning to think would not get solved in my lifetime. Same year, the great team at DeepMind had offered AlphaFold, which predicts the proteins, how they fold into 3D shapes. So the impossible seems impossible until it doesn't. So what is this crazy idea that I'm going to talk about today about the true future of personalized AI? Well, I got to talk about something that happens to systems as they become more intelligent, or I should say could happen as they become more intelligent, which is consciousness. What is consciousness? Well, I think first off, I should start by saying consciousness, in my opinion, is a spectrum. We all intuitively know this because I bet many of you here, I certainly hope many of you wash your hands pretty regularly. You're doing that, you're killing a ton of bacteria, and you don't even think twice about it. Because you know the bacteria is probably not conscious. It has no subjective experience. You're not causing suffering. And as you think about these larger organisms, you might swat a fly. You probably might kill a mouse. You're definitely not going to kill a dog or a human. And a big reason why is you know you're causing suffering. This object, this thing you see in the world, has a subjective experience. And I'll just say it also, I'm pretty sure you all do too, but I also don't know for sure that you have subjective experience. I think you do. You all seem kind of conscious. You all seem to be looking at me. But all you really know is your own self. You only know your own subjective experience. So even with that as sort of reality, you should have this intuition that likely consciousness is a spectrum. So what is consciousness? The subjective experience of observing oneself. Douglas Hofstadter wrote a great book on this. He said that your mind's essence is a self-referential loop, basically the brain looking at itself. This is a drawing that my grandfather had up in his house. He's Dutch. I would go in the summers and see it. It's called Drawing Hands by M.C. Escher. It's one hand drawing another hand. It's drawing itself, which is the same concept of sort of a self-referential loop. And you can kind of think of this metaphor as kind of how you might think of consciousness. So I'll pose the question, could machines become conscious? Well, since human consciousness likely gradually arose as our brains evolved with more neurons and more complex feedback loops, and babies aren't born conscious. If you have any babies, you'll see that they're really not fully self-aware for actually quite a while. It's not impossible to imagine that AI that increases in complexity and introspective capabilities might cross a threshold where a genuine strange loop of consciousness appears, at first like an insect and eventually like a human. So then what creates this consciousness? Well, Sebastian Sung, professor of neuroscience at Princeton, says our brain's wiring makes us who we are. He wrote this book called Connectome, which is the set of connections, the network in your nervous system, in your brain, that create this amazing emergent property of consciousness. And he has this amazing metaphor he talks about in his TED Talk in 2010. He says that what makes you you is your connectome. And here he shows this drawing or this image of a river. And I think this metaphor is so apt because in many ways we know pretty well that our brains have neural activity. There are these neurons that are connected to others and through synapses communicate with one another. That neural activity gives rise to our behaviors, gives rise to our senses. And that neural activity, much like the water in a riverbed, follows the riverbed, the connections. But it also shapes it. Over enough time, your brain wiring and the connectome that makes you you changes, it adapts, it evolves, it changes. And that's why I think this metaphor is so powerful. Now let me give you some more intuition here. This is going to be a cool video I'll show you that shows you, like, what am I talking about when I say my connectome? This is a brain slicer. It's slicing up a little bit of brain into these little short sheets, and we're going to zoom in to those brain fragments. This is credit to Daniel Berger for this video, and Bobby Castori holding that plate. This is Jeff Lichtman's lab in Harvard. This is going the Z dimension, sort of depth-wise, creating a reconstruction of your connectome, zooming it out, zooming back in. And I first saw this in 2015. It blew my mind. This is what started me on the journey of what I'm talking about today. And it shows you that if you take a brain, this happens to be a mouse neocortex, but you could imagine the human is very similar, and you slice it up very small, you use an electron microscope, you find the wiring diagram, you could create the wiring diagram of a brain. The only difference between what I just showed you and you is about 1 trillion times. That small proportion of 2015 of neocortex, that connectome was mapped, and now we are, the human brain is about 1 trillion times bigger. And so that brain, if you think about it, this is the wiring diagram. You can imagine last night it looks like this for you. This morning it looks like this. Most of you would say, yeah, that's me. That's the same me today as it was last night. If you replaced one of these neurons, even though the neuron changes a lot, you might say, okay, yeah, that's same me no matter what. Now, I'm curious, if you had surgery and just replace one of those neurons, let's imagine it's a thought experiment. You replace one of those neurons over, that's one surgery. How many of you think you'd still be you? Probably just one neuron changed with maybe a digital neuron. Anyone still think you'd be the same you? Yeah, everyone. What if the next day you did another surgery, replaced another neuron? 2 neurons. It's still you, right? You're replacing the same neuron with the exact identical digital version. Now you play that forward, gradually replace half, or gradually replace all of them. You can now imagine, wait a minute, if it's the connections, the connectome that makes me, maybe I could, in theory, if you replace all of them in one surgery, it might be true that what makes you you is your connectome. And if your connectome can be emulated, you might be emulated. And so the true audacious thing I want to talk about today is mind emulation. So mind emulation is a conscious system that behaves identically as your original mind but feels like you. It has the same subjective experience. One night, you go to sleep biologically. The next, you wake up digitally. Of course, over that night, lots of time might have passed, but that's the concept. What do these mind emulations potentially look like? Well, first, it'll probably just be in the cloud. You'll be some system that has subjective experience. Eventually, maybe your grandkids might text with you, and you have that subjective experience, and they have the full wealth of your whole knowledge and what you remember. It could be a voice, could even be embodied in a robot, where the meat that makes your arms and legs today gets replaced by actuators and sensors and connected to your connectome the same way your body is connected through your nervous system. Now, many of you might think it's obvious why you might want to do this, but I'll just answer straight up, why emulate a mind? 3 words: life is precious. I started this talk saying why I'm here. I'm here because of them. These are my 3 kids, Luke, Jack, and Alex. I want them to live in a future where they can choose to die when they're ready, not when disease strikes them prematurely. What makes us us shouldn't disappear when our bodies do. So that's why I'm here, why I'm focused on this. Now, to do this would be audacious and crazy. Like I said, we're taking a trip to Crazy Town. What kind of ingredients might you need for this? Well, you're going to need a brain map, the connectome, the things that make you you. You're going to probably need cheap compute, and you'll also probably need behavior data, the things that happen while you're still alive. The good news on the first 2 fronts is those things are improving dramatically. This is computability and scannability of the human brain since 1900. This is exponential. The y dimension here is logarithmic. And we're on pace to get to a point where the true computability of the human brain only costs about $1,000 in 2047. It's possible today even, but with a much more expensive system. The connectome is even more impressive. So the connectome, this comprehensive set of connections, the first organism was mapped in 1986. C. elegans, a small little organism. More recently, we've had larger and larger organisms. 2015 is when I first saw this, and ever since then, it's been improving. We're on pace to have the human connectome mapped in 2040, which would be an amazing, amazing goal, to have the comprehensive set of connections mapped and something you could simulate in 2040. Now, the last part, behavior data. Now, why would you need behavior data? Couldn't you just didn't you just say, Dan, that you are your connectome? Why, isn't that enough? Well, the great study they did in 2017 here called Could a Neuroscientist Understand a Microprocessor? Asked this question. They take an Atari chip and gave it to a bunch of neuroscientists and say, figure it out. It turns out it's really hard. If you do this scanning thing, figure out how the transistors work, and our brain is much more complicated than this, it's so much easier if you could play the Atari and learn through that process. And that's what behavior data is, understanding how the system works while it's still alive. What kind of behavior data? Like I showed you earlier. Everything you've read and written, everything you've said and heard. And how are you going to do that? With the pendant. The pendant captures and remembers what you say and hear throughout the day. Not only is it going to help you be a better dad and more productive, but it helps create this set of data that one day might be useful in emulating your mind. So that's the future of personalized AI, mind emulation. And for some of you might think this is crazy. I'll give you just a simple analogy. It was once thought crazy to go to Mars, but SpaceX seems to be making good progress. They built Starlink ability for you to have satellite internet cost effectively across the world as a way to get there, as a way to fund the R&D necessary to launch some rockets. And that's what the pendant is for us. We're building the pendant today to build a great business that we're just cash flow positive, we're growing really nicely. And that money is we're going to invest in enabling this long-term vision of mind emulation. I see some of you are excited and nodding. If you're interested, we're hiring. Go to limitless.ai/careers. All kinds of roles across the board we're opening to really invest in this long-term future. And I'll end with what I started. This is the great quotes from all of you that have loved our product. There's a card. When you buy a pendant, and we've had this now in there for a while, you get this little card. And the card says, our vision is to free the human mind from its biological limitations. This has now a deeper meaning. We haven't announced this until this week that we're going after mind emulation. When you first got it, oh yeah, great, biological limitations, memory, focus. But there's a much deeper meaning to this vision now after I've explained mind emulation. So if you believe that technology can augment our capabilities in ways we never imagined, we're building for you. Thank you.
One small step for man.